Hey gang, welcome to another stunt rigging toolbox talk. Today we're not in the shop. Today we're just in the office because I was doing paperwork. But I wanted to go over something, and it's been bugging me for a while, and a long time. And I just want to go in, and it pertains to assumption of risk is the first factor of it, and secondarily is stunt harnesses. So let's just talk about assumption of risk. Your job in rigging as a rigger, as a head rigger, as a supervising head rigger, is to mitigate risk. So you don't want to assume any risk you don't have to, which means you try to come up with safe and or alternate ways and or better ways and or follow the directions of the equipment you're using and work around the load limits, the geometry limits, the material limits of what you're using to keep your performers safe. You have an ethical and moral and working duty to protect your performers as well as to try to get the shot or the rig the way you see it. The fact is, people supersede the shot. It's all $5 in a box of popcorn. So the fact is, human sandbags, you can't treat them like that. They are human bodies, and it's better not to break up your performers. So given that, one of the things that's really got me bugged lately is this whole harness routine. Now, I'll just say I don't believe in any of the other harnesses. I use Climbing Sutra exclusively. I trust the manufacturer. The manufacturer has always worked, developing, done huge amounts of R&D, done ongoing testing, uses the best materials. Period. End of story. There are Johnny-come-lately copycats out there, which people seem fond of buying because they're the internet generation and they love all the Instagram crap that gets posted. But I've taken those said products and pull tested them, and they're less than half the strength of a Sutra. Now, a typical Sutra jerk vest, the points are 4,000 pounds, which is 1,800 kilos in normal metric money. The Spectra vests are the thinnest, lightest. All of the 64 pick points on the Spectra vest are amazing. The ballistic nylon are also good. Each has its place in your arsenal. And I'm also going to throw into all this harness conversation bungee harnesses, super swivel harnesses, etc., etc., etc. All Sutra harnesses, okay? So I use exclusively Sutra. And the reason is customer service. People stand behind their work. They use the best materials. That's what we do. That's why you use certain equipment. You're not buying shit off Amazon to save a few bucks. One of the things that bothers me is people buy a harness and then they think that they never need to get it inspected again. And I come across harnesses routinely that are 5, 6, 10, 12, 15 years old. And people have hung on to these things. And it says, it's funny enough, you buy a harness and a nylon harness is for a full jerk is around $500, and a Spectra titanium, everything's around $1,500. The fact is, it's a pittance compared to what you make using them and compared to keeping your life safe. So you buy a harness and then you don't take care of it. It says when you buy it, you get one of these pieces of paper. It comes with your harness, and nobody reads them because people all know better. Nobody bothers to read the instructions. And it tells you they're good for 2 years and they need to be re-inspected by Sutra. Okay, that is now changing a bit. Sutra has designated other people to be able to inspect harnesses. It takes about an hour to fully go through a harness every time you really seriously inspect it. But it also states that you need to inspect it before you use it. And I find people, my normal protocol is at the beginning of every show, I have all the performers bring their harnesses to me. I look at the dates. Most of them are out of date. I make them get new dates or get new inspections. The fact is, without a long history of knowing what it's been through, it's hard to go through and say it's going to be fine. I also, several years ago, made the point to contact people and tell them performers should keep a harness log. It's really easy to get from your riggers if they're really professionals at their job, because they'll have a chart where they pick you from, what pulls were, how strong they were, and you'll be able to keep a log of how many times you pulled from that point and the next point and so you'll know, because points do stretch, they do wear. The fact is, if you're flying a lot, 2 years, you throw it away and get another one. If you're only an occasional flyer doing occasional things, every 2 years, send it in and get it recertified. It's not that hard to do. I have to say, it's like people who race cars. Your helmet is only valid for so long. Your seatbelt 5-point harnesses are only, they have a punch out stamped in them on the tag that's punched out a hole on date of manufacture and month of manufacture. So you can only keep them for so long before you take them out and throw them out. I don't care if you've raced in 5 years or not, they're not valid. You got to put new ones in, you'll never pass tech inspection. Why is it we, who do some of the most un-CE approved stuff in the world, feel this compunction to not keep our equipment up to date and inspected? A lot of it stems from the fact that certain people end up accumulating harnesses as a way to earn money and think it's great to have them. Well, that's fine. If you're going to rent them out, treat it like the business it is, and every so many years you need to recertify, and every 5 to 6 years you're going to throw harnesses out and figure that into the cost of rentals, because that's what owning these implies. But people don't want to do that. People are finding ways to just buy them and ignore them, buy them and use them, and oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Okay, it's not fine. UV light ruins the fabrics. If they get in a tank with water, if you're doing stunts and getting yanked into the water tanks at any of the studios, they have chlorine and bromine in the water. Those destroy spectra immediately. And you can't see it, but it's now basically shit. It's half the strength it was when it started. These are things you need to pay attention to and document and have accepted. It's wear and tear on your harness. If you're knowing you're going to be yanked and working and dealing with a tank for a better part of however many days you're in the water, they're going to buy you a new harness, or the production will buy one and give it to you. Okay, that's the point. You have to allow for this. This is business, folks. This is not recreational climbing gear where you guys all have your little dinky waist harness that you've had for God knows how long, and you think it's fine. This is a piece of real safety equipment. So what's happened is, and there's a big hoo-ha going on around in various places about getting them certified, and it makes no sense to me because yes, it's an expense. I mean, my rigging gear twice a year gets lowered, which is thousands of dollars. It has to be inspected. It has logbooks. There's logbooks on every piece of equipment. How hard is it to keep track of a harness? I don't care if you've got 100 of them. Keep track of them. You know, if you own 100 harnesses, you should expect they're not all made on the same day. So you should expect every year you're going to cut some up. You're going to recertify some. It's the way the business works. It's like keeping everything in spec. Now, everybody's like, oh, it'll be fine. Well, the problem is it's all fine until it's not. Okay, and the only people assuming these risks then are the rigger and the coordinator, not to mention the performer, but usually they're at the far down the flow chart. But the coordinator is going to get hit with the brunt of it because their gear's not been, if it's their harness, not been certified, not been inspected. If it's the performer's equipment, then why are you flying him with an out-of-date harness will be the first question to the rigger. All this is a whole, it goes, and even if the accident is not because of the harness. If the harness is out of date, it's going to bring up a question of how this is run. It's the ethics and the way things are done, because you're doing things directly against manufacturer's instructions with no inspections by qualified people. Okay, so right now there's some flux going on. So like I said, some people have been allowed that are not directly at Todd's factory, at Suta factory, to inspect harnesses, and they will be designated to do that. I've been designated one. There's several in the UK. And like I said, you should expect to have to pay for a harness. Now, in the UK, it's lower every 6 months. So every 6 months, you just drop your harness off. It takes an hour. It gets inspected. You get it back. If you don't want to travel to the people, you FedEx it to them. Now you don't have to FedEx it to Las Vegas and have it inspected or recerted or repaired or whatever is required when they go through the 2-year inspection. And it'll be good for, basically you do that for every year for up to 6 years. At the end of 6 years, you throw these things away. I don't care if you bought it, put it in the drawer, and waited 7 years to use it, it still isn't valid, period. If you bought it and didn't get it inspected technically every time out, it's not valid, okay? And it's about the assumption of risk. I am going to verify that I will assume the risk of your harness when you fly in it with the rig that I've hung. I've hung everything up to that point. I better have my hands and eyes and qualify that harness. It's a very contentious world in these days. People try to get money out of everybody, and a lot of accidents happen in stunt world that don't get reported, don't get noticed, and get swept under the rug. I'm the first to notice this with all sorts of things. But the funny thing is, when something big enough does happen, the first questions come up. Was the harness in date? You know, it's just a way of doing business. Do you have logs on your equipment? Has it been inspected? Now, it could be any cause of the accident other than the actual equipment that is tagged, but you have to set a baseline. If everything is right and followed procedure, then accidents do happen. But the fact is, if shit's not been tended to, it's not inspected, it's not good quality, it's inferior copycat quality, nobody's looked at it, the guy just puts it on, you go, if something happens, well, it's on you. You're assuming the risk then. It's not, or whoever will hook you on that line will assume that risk. And it'll be a cascade effect of everybody getting their ass dragged through it. And yeah, it's sad that somebody's going to get hurt, but it's also sad that all those bozos had the opportunity to cover their ass and to cover the performer's ass all along the way by adhering to simple manufacturer's guidelines. You know, like I said, every time you get a harness, you get one of these pieces of paper in the plastic bag with your wonderful buckle wrench, okay, in the nice, very cool nylon bag with the little push connector to open and close it. It's great, but does anybody ever read this? You know, if it's been hit with a force of greater than 1,000 pounds, 450 kilos, kids, actually 454 point whatever, but more than 1,000 pounds on a pick point, it should be taken out of service. Okay, that's pretty simple. Well, that's pushing it, guys, because a 100-kilo load on a severe gold tail will see a 500-kilo load on the dyno if you're stopping in a 6 or 8 foot from 12 meters. You know, if it's a 2.5 meter stop to come to a gold tail drop for a superhero drop, you're going to see 5 times body weight. Okay, if you're a 100-kilo dude, that's 500 kilos right there. It's momentary, but you're pushing the limits right there. And people don't think about this. They're like, oh, it'll be fine. I mean, heck, it's only your life on the line, guys. You know, there's, like I mentioned, the chemicals. I mentioned the UV light. You know, excess heat is another factor. 200 degrees. You know, that's why I don't like Dyneema line. You can put it in boiling water and it's half the strength it was previously because its melting point is 170 degrees. Harnesses here with Spectra, 200 degrees or more, fuck it, it's toast. Toss it, get a new one. And the thing is it's not expensive in the overall picture of things. It's a piece of equipment, you know. Every other professional has thousands of dollars worth of equipment. I mean, you should have, if you're a stunt professional, your own fire suit, your own helmet, your own gloves, all of your own gear. If you own all of that gear and you make your living as a stunt person, a stunt performer doing these things, then it is just part of the package and it should expect maintenance, renewal, certification. I mean, you to get your car every year MOT'd or TÜV'd, you get your car inspected, you get your brakes redone, you get, you know, I mean, folks, you know, like I said, in the automotive racing world, every organization on the planet has date limits on soft goods like harnesses. You just get new ones. Helmets have limits. Hans devices have dates on them. So literally, crash or not, bang the helmet or not, whatever, you throw it away. 5 years, 3 years, depends on which sanction, what classes you're in, et cetera, et cetera. So what's so different about a stunt harness in that respect? Okay? There is no difference. And in fact, it should be even more particular and paid attention to because of what it does. And a lot of guys, oh, well, we use it for just hand pulls. We use it for this. Well, in theory, you're not generating that much force on a hand pull, but if it's not 100%, how do you measure what percent it is? How do you know that it has this many broken stitches, or the loop that you always use for your flight, which is now stretched and it looks like a big, long, stringy, baggy bow on your harness? How do you know that that one's going to hold at half, at 3/4, at 1/4? You don't know. I mean, even the literature that comes with the harness when you read it, says if it shows wear of 10%, that's an easy 10% rule, and that applies to rock climbing, that applies to work at heights, that applies to all your errata, sprat, all of your organizations. 10% wear rule, hard goods. And on soft goods, it's even more important to pay attention. Frayed, broken tacks, broken bars, broken stitching, all of that. And I mean on every place. So that's just my wrap today. It's a no visual aids. We'll get into inspecting harnesses. I'm going to whip one out, show the process. It takes some time to do it right, inside and out, looking at the bar tacks, looking at the stitching, looking at everything. But the takeaway for today is assume your risk, but minimize your risk. So you do that by using inspected equipment, using an inspected harness. If you're going to fly in it, every time you put it on, you should look at it and see what's changed or has something changed from the last time you did it. How hard is it to carry a little A4 moleskin notebook or a piece of photocopied paper that has harness pick points in it like we use in rigging to designate every gag, every pick point used, what the pulls were, what the pressures on ratchets were, what the falls were, what the dyno read. All those are available to you. So just team up with your riggers and get that info and keep your own logbook, because that way you have a database and a way of backing up the claim that the harness is still good. Okay? It's a really important thing. It's only your life at the bottom line of it all. So I can truly say that you need to inspect your harness, and it takes time. So when outside people are inspecting it, yeah, it's going to cost some money, an hour's time. And everybody starts whining about $50 or $100 maintenance on a $500 or $1,000, $1,500 item every year. Come on, it's a joke. It really is 10% of the cost. Or less to maintain it and know that it's good every year. That's a pretty low expense. It comes with the territory. It's called the cost of doing business. Like I said, you don't drive your car with no brakes. You don't let your car go out of its inspection period, or you pay a penalty fee on it. And these are all ingrained, yet when it comes to harnesses, stunt guys are like, oh, we know better, it's fine. It's fine. And they have no real background and no knowledge on how to inspect these things. They just, oh, it's fine. And people have gotten away with it enough to where they just think they can do that. They know better. And this is part of the problem with this industry, is everybody knows better and nobody pays attention to the rules. From flying things on condor baskets to not inspecting their harnesses. This is part of a disease that's only in our group, because other craft trades, the effects guys, the props guys, the grips guys, all those are really rigidly enforced on their rules of the heavy equipment they use, the way they hang stuff, the weights on truss that gets hung on chain motors over sets. All of that's very, very particularly accounted for. Yet, for some reason, Stunts thinks they're still cowboys 50 years ago, and they, oh yeah, we're fine, it doesn't matter, we can do whatever we want. You can't, because people get hurt, and when people get hurt, the witch hunt starts, and it's always better to have your house in order. Yes, it takes effort. It's no fun going through the 30 tons of equipment I have every January, like I've been doing an inventory and an inspection where I bring ropes out of service. I cut up, $10 a meter Dyneema Technora rope, throw it away. I throw away span sets. I throw away harnesses. I throw away safety belts and positioning belts. It's out of date. It can't get recertified. It can't get looked. It's done. I cut it up and throw it out. So why should the performer in the stunt harness be any different? If you want to do it right and you want to own 50 or 65 harnesses or whatever you guys, 4 wardrobe racks full of harnesses, then do it. Do it right though. Every 2 years get them inspected. Every 6 years throw them out. Done. Cycle it through. Rent them at the cost that the price point that pays for all of this and the effort required to maintain it, and keep the paperworks and the logbooks. That way, when shit goes down, you have a record of it all. Just like the people who are doing equipment need to do. So the new rules coming up will be a twice a year inspection, a 6-year total life on the harness, especially in the UK. It'll be it'll be the same as your Lolar. And every time you use it, it needs to be inspected. And I suggest, and you should have a logbook of your harness from the day you've got it till the day you cut it up and throw it away. It should be accounted for. How many pulls? How many pulls on that loop? How hard were the pulls? Because if you're doing heavy ratchets with an inexperienced person on the equipment or with people who don't know their math, I mean, 10 bar or 150 psi it's 7 pounds per psi. So you're looking at close to 1,000 pounds of force coming out of the ram alone. Okay, so that translated through the pulleys will be less than that, but you're still getting close to 1,000 pounds at a hit or 450 kilos at a hit when you're doing a good ratchet pull or a flight. So how often do you think you can keep doing that on the same pick points before it starts to show wear and tear? You need to have a log of it. You need to know, oh, we used this pick, let's go to the other one, okay? And just as a last side note, you should always back up your picks, especially with heavy duty pulls, with drops. And that doesn't mean lark's footing a span set, a small spectra around another pick and bringing it up and hooking it to the carabiner or to the shackle as well. It means using a separate shackle. Do not ever, ever tie or lark's foot any material goods to a material loop on the Sutra, for your backups especially, because they will just generate heat and you instantly ruin that pick. So folks, these are little things, it's all here in the documents, that need to be enforced. And the problem we have is nobody enforces this stuff. Everybody wants to make money and nobody wants to have to do the work it takes to actually do this. But it's getting to a point where it's got to be done, because you have to keep track of this stuff. If you get hurt, it's going to be you assuming the risk, or whoever hooked you on the line, or whoever the coordinator was that told you to do that and didn't have their rigger enforce the rules. So it's just gonna cascade, and everyone thinks they can ignore it. That's my pet peeve today. So use only Sutra harnesses, especially in our industry. Use an inspected harness. Keep a harness log. Keep your dates up. It should automatically go off, man. It's time to get shit inspected every 6 months. Boom, boom. And every time you put it on, give it a once over. Look at the fabric, look at the buckles, look at the straps. If something looks frayed, fuzzy, or fucked up, look at it. Is it problem? Has it more than 10%? Okay, these are things you should be responsible for as the wearer of the harness as well. Yeah, so that's today's thought while I sit here in the home office, and we'll be talking to you again. Thanks.